Welcome to the Basketball Show podcast edition on the Stingray Podcast Network. My name is Brian Swain, sitting in this week for our host, Paul Sir. Got Ryan Reed with me. We talk all things basketball this week. We get into NBA free agency, possible Demar Derozan trade. We talk the Canadian men's basketball team, and we are joined by Alex Adams from Raptors Republic to talk about the Raptors and the Canadian men's basketball team. Good morning, Edmonton. Welcome to the Basketball Show. My name is Brian Swain. I'm here with Ryan Reed, and we got Paul Sir. He'll be joining us on location. He is down at the Hoop City 3x3, so lots going on here in Edmonton this week. But we are here coming to you from the Sports 1440 studios in West Edmonton Mall. It is an awesome sunny weekend. Like I say, so much going on here in Edmonton. We have got a lot of hoops to talk to you about today, and we'll be running that down in just a moment. But before we get rolling here, I'm going to bring in Ryan. Ryan, can you let our listeners know about today's text question and our poll?
We actually have a couple going on today. So on Twitter, basketball_show, we're talking about NBA free agency. What is the best free agent addition this NBA offseason is the poll today. It's Paul George, 76ers, Chris Paul for the Spurs, Klay Thompson for the Mavericks, or KCP for the Magic, or, according to recent reports, Demar Derozan might be going to the Kings. So that's a fun one to add too. As well on Twitter, we have a question. It's, what is your Canadian national team men's basketball starting five coming up for the Olympics? If you reply to that, we'll feature you on the show, and we'll discuss your answer. So go on Twitter, basketball_show. That is basketball_show on X or Twitter. Reply to both of those polls. At least vote on the poll, then we'll talk about your answer.
Yeah, and you can let us know on the text line as well about that. Give us your starting five. We'll discuss that ourselves. We'll give all our starting fives a little bit later on in the show. It's going to be fun to talk about. The Olympics start 3 weeks from yesterday, so they're coming up real quick. And the Canadian men's basketball team has had their camp. The women just announced their roster earlier this week. We're going to dive into that a little bit later too. So lots to get excited about here as we gear up for what we hope is going to be just an amazing Olympic performance for our basketball teams. Give you the rundown for the show today. Of course, we got myself and Ryan in the studio. Paul, as I mentioned, is down at the Fan Park downtown in Ice District. He'll be joining us in just a moment. We have some special guests joining us as well today. We're going to have our usual Stingers report with Coach Jordan Breaker and new Stinger Trey McGowan. He's going to be coming on to talk with us as well. Tell us about joining the Stingers, how he's found things going so far. The Stingers with a huge win down at the Expo Center last night, beating Vancouver. So the Stingers now have the best record in the CEBL as we hit the home stretch. Playoffs coming up soon. The Stingers are now 10-4. So lots to be excited about there. Looking forward to talking to Coach Jordan and Trey about that. Later on in hour 2, we are going to have Alex Adams. Alex is with Raptors Republic, and he has been doing an awesome job covering the Canadian men's basketball training camp in Toronto. So we're going to get all of his insights on that. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be talking about our rosters for that as well, too. And I think we are we ready, Ryan? No, we're not ready. Okay, we're going to be joined here by Paul Sir momentarily. Before we get to that, we'll maybe just talk, as I mentioned earlier, we also have the Canadian senior women's team announced their Olympic roster earlier this week on Tuesday. They announced their final 12 players. Of course, they'll be making their 4th consecutive Olympic trip this year. They were there in 2012 in London, 2016 in Rio, and then the COVID games 3 years ago. That roster, we are so proud here in Alberta, will include Yvonne Edgem. Yvonne will be making her Olympic debut. Yvonne, she's been a guest on the show several times. She's out of Calgary. She plays at Gonzaga. Has had an amazing 4-year career there. She won the Becky Hammon Award this last season as the top mid-major player in NCAA Division I women's basketball. Just an amazing honor for her. And at 22 years old, to get a chance to represent her country on sports' biggest stage is just amazing. She's going to be there alongside some of the national team stalwarts. Kia Nurse, there'll be 4 WNBA players there. Kia Nurse from the Los Angeles Sparks, Bridget Carleton from the Minnesota Lynx, Letitia Amher from the Atlanta Dream, and then Aaliyah Edwards, the star rookie for the Washington Mystics. So they will all be there as well. So, I mean, lots of hopes for that team, but for Yvonne to get this opportunity, like I say, at age 22, and she's not even done her college career yet. She'll be coming back for her fifth year, her COVID year in 2024-25. It's just amazing. She came up here in Calgary, went to high school here in Alberta, and like I say, we're just also proud of her getting that honor. So huge congratulations to Yvonne for that. Another local spotlight I want to give to while we got a chance is TJ Wall. Goes to Archbishop O'Leary. He's been playing with the Canadians men's under-17 team that has been competing at the U17 World Cup in Turkey this week. The Canadians had a nice run that came to an end yesterday when they were beaten by Team USA. Team USA just kind of been steamrolling everybody over there, and they knocked the Canadians out in the quarterfinals, but a nice run, and then TJ's got an opportunity to play in every game. So TJ, we're proud of him as well, and he got that opportunity. And TJ will have a very busy summer. He's going to be playing for Team Alberta coming up in the Canadian Basketball National Championships later on this summer. Those will be taking place in Toronto. Lots of other stuff going on in the basketball world as well that we're going to talk about. Going to get Ryan's opinions on a couple things here. Ryan, now I know you came when I first saw you this morning. You were very excited because you are, of course, as I think most of our listeners know now, you are a big Sacramento Kings fan, and you were telling me that it looks like Demar Derozan could be a King.
I don't want to jinx it. And for years and years and years, it's always like our big free agent targets, like a 3-and-D gets or 8th man on a normal roster. But a chance to get to Demar Derozan, Canadian legend, just slot him in right off the bat for 20 to 25 mil, according to Woj, in this sign and trade deal. I don't want to jinx it at all. I really need this to happen. The Kings have so long just been treading water, and we had that one run a couple of years ago as a 3 seed and then losing in the first round. But we haven't won a playoff round in my conscious memory, and I've been a fan for a while.
It has been a while. Well, I can tell you they've won a few in my conscious memory, but that goes back a long time to what I'm sure to you must be like these fabled days of Chris Webber and Mike Bibby, Vlade Divac, Peja Stojakovic. These are just stories that I'm sure you've heard. But I guess the rumor is you're breaking it down there, Ryan. It's Kevin Huerter could be the player.
It would be Kevin Huerter, and I think like a second-round pick shipped out to San Antonio Spurs, were identified as the third team. So right now it'd be the Bulls get a second-round pick or something like that from us, just for taking on. For being a part of it, like getting something out of DeMar. We get DeMar, then the Spurs just get Kevin Huerter, I think, who's still a very good player. Had a tough year last year. Not exactly as consistent as he was the year prior to that, and especially with the emergence of Malik Monk for us last year, the Kings. Kevin Huerter definitely saw a reduced role, and he has a long-term contract at 16, 17 mil a year, so still quite young. I think is 1999, I believe his birthday is. Same birthday as me, fun fact.
There you go.
But 1999.
Yeah, we should clarify too that when you say us, we do mean the Kings. So
yes,
Ryan is on the payroll. He's also, as our listeners know, he's an Oiler by night, King by night, King by day, something like that. So that'll be really interesting to watch. I think we were talking about this a little bit before we came on the air, Ryan. I think, and I was saying to you, how much does DeMar have left? I think he's aged pretty well. He's got a lot of tread on his tires in the NBA, but I mean, he's still been very, very effective. What's funny about DeMar DeRozan is like he was kind of the unicorn for so many years there because he was like literally the only guy or the only star player in the NBA that had a mid-range shot. Right, like the mid-range game has pretty much completely disappeared, with the exception of DeMar DeRozan, and now that he's he kind of kept that thing alive for several years there, for really most of the 2010s. And now that's kind of crept back into the game a lot. We're seeing a lot more of the star players in the NBA are developing that. That's pretty much Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's bread and butter. Luka Doncic is known for that. So I mean, DeMar DeRozan he's a really interesting guy. I know he's close to everybody's hearts here in Canada, or at least those who are Raptors fans. So he's got a lot of people that'll be cheering him on. Would like to see him get maybe another chance to at least contend for a championship before his career is up, and I don't know if Sacramento with all due respect, Ryan, I don't know if Sacramento is going to be that place where Demar can contend for a championship. But I would say he's got a better chance of winning a championship in Sacramento than he does in Chicago.
Yes, and exactly. It's not exactly about winning championships in Sacramento. Let's win a playoff round. Let's win a game. Let's win a series in a playoff round. Like last season, we beat the Warriors in the play-in game and just weren't able to get it done after that. So, yeah.
You did get to have that. At least you got to win that one playoff game and light the beam that one night. So
we won
that.
3 playoff games against the Warriors last year. We were up 2-0. But, again, Steph Curry had 50 in Game 7. So
what can you do, right? Steph gonna Steph. But, that'll be interesting to see. So that's one of the ones we are looking for. So keep an eye on that. Other things going on. Of course, we got our Twitter poll question has touched on free agency. Free agency opened last Sunday with a bang. There were some big moves right off the bat, and then it kind of went quiet after that. But some of the big moves, of course, were Paul George going from the Clippers to the 76ers. We had some of the other major moves. Chris Paul, formerly of the Golden State Warriors, is now a San Antonio Spur, and Klay Thompson, also formerly of the Golden State Warriors, is now a Dallas Maverick. So those are probably the 3 biggest moves, I would say, so far, and maybe another couple other ones that might have flown under the radar. Isaiah Hartenstein, who is so instrumental for the Knicks as they had their great run down the stretch and in the playoffs. He got absolutely paid by the OKC Thunder. I think... I should look this up, but I think it's in the neighborhood of about $25 million per year. So, I mean, he did very well to get the contract he did. I don't think the Knicks could afford or were really willing to pay that much. And that's the case of a guy who, had a great 3 months and cashed in on it. And whether those 3 months can translate into consistent play over the course of a season and over the course of multiple seasons and make this contract worthwhile, we'll find out. But as someone who's cheering for the Knicks, Hartenstein was just an incredible piece of that team this year. He really fit their kind of blood, sweat mentality, just the whole workman-like attitude of that group, and he'll be missed. And we'll see how he fits in OKC. I guess now we got Paul on the line. Paul, can you hear me? Hello, Paul.
Hi, Brian.
Hey, Paul.
Brian.
Paul, sir, joining us live from Ice District via the wonders of technology. Paul, how you doing?
Oh, it's just unbelievable down here right now. I'm standing in the middle of the Ice District, and I'm looking, and we've got 8 courts of kids playing. One of the pro teams warming up, a wonderful wheelchair match going on right now, and China is playing Princeton on the main court in the qualifying draw of the men's. Like it's just exactly what we envisioned at one point, guys. And man, if you want to have a good time, get down to the Ice District today. Great basketball, great atmosphere. We got food trucks galore and kids can play. It's just fantastic. Other than that, I'm just sitting around doing nothing.
Hoops heaven, right, Paul? Hoops heaven in the middle of downtown Edmonton.
Hoops heaven. Yep, that's exactly right.
Maybe just give a quick rundown, Paul, in terms details of tickets, where people can get them, how they can get them, and what times games are running today for anybody who wants to come down there and check the action out for themselves.
Okay, we're down at the Fan Park until about 10 o'clock tonight. Right now we have the men's draw going on. We're going to slip into the women's quarters and semis. You'll be able to watch that on TSN Plus tonight. And you can buy tickets at the gate. We have our ticket booth set up there. Or you can go on donorthevents.ca and purchase tickets in advance if you want. But all kinds of ways to buy tickets. Ticket prices are $10 for the day, $25 for a family of 5, $5 for students, and kids are free. So, come on down. It's very affordable and a lot of fun.
You can't beat that. And, as we talked about last week, there's literally Olympians on those courts right now. You get to see them all today and tomorrow. So that is pretty cool. And looks like the weather's cooperating too, Paul. We've been inside for about an hour here, but I know it was really nice when we came in. So hopefully that's going to be the case for the rest of the weekend. And I think we'll talk a little bit more about 3x3 when we bring you back on in the second hour. But right now, maybe we'll just jump into. We've been talking a little bit of the NBA so far, Paul. We've been talking some free agency.
Demar.
Yeah.
Demar Derozan, the Demar did Sacramento Rumors have our resident Kings fan here. Very excited.
Not official yet. It's picking up. Official.
It's picking up steam, but there you go. Yeah, but what have your thoughts been so far, Paul? Just we've actually, our poll question for today is who has made the best free agent signing so far? And our options have been, of course, the big three ones would be Paul George, Chris Paul, and Klay Thompson. What teams have impressed you so far?
Well, I think the George signing is really interesting. I think if he stays healthy, that's a big upgrade over Tobias Harris, who went over to Detroit. Klay Thompson's interesting in Dallas. Like, will he find a meaningful role? I think he will. So those two are intriguing. DeMar, that's great. I'm excited about that because on that team, I think that could work really well. So so there's some pretty cool signings so far, I think, and. The one that I think has the best chance to work if he stays healthy is Paul George, because playing aside Embiid and Harden, I think that could be a pretty formidable lineup.
There's always one of these, Paul, where it's like when I see these, whether it's a signing or a trade or even a player being drafted, whatever it may be, I always think to myself, well, I got to know what Paul's opinion is on this. And this week, that was Klay Thompson, because we've talked so much about the Mavs. Of course, we had a great guest, Chuck Cooperstein, joining us throughout the playoff run to give us a lot of insight on how the Mavs were doing. And they're a very interesting team in the fact that they made it as far as they did. They got within 3 wins of the NBA championship. But at the same time, they were exposed and shown to have a lot of flaws. Does Klay Thompson
100%.
address any of those flaws?
What he addresses that they didn't have is consistent three-point shooting, particularly from the corner. And I think that's where Thompson's impact could be felt the most. Like, I think he could slip right into that huge role with them. And when you think of Luka and Kyrie doing what they do, and then having an outlet like Thompson, that really is, when you look at the shortfall in the shooting percentages of the wing and corner guys, and one of them just went and signed elsewhere. I think Thompson really could be an interesting addition. The only problem is he's just had so many injuries and he's in his mid-30s now. So how effective he could be game in and game out. But the great thing about this is he's not going to be expected to be a primary or secondary scorer like he was with Golden State. He's literally going to be a third or fourth option, and to have a guy who can shoot the ball like that as a third or fourth option is a real luxury.
Yeah, and that's what intrigues me most about it, Paul. It's maybe not even so much a question of what he fits or what he can provide that team, because I think Klay Thompson doing what peak Klay Thompson did is perfect for the Mavs. The question is, he's not peak Klay Thompson, but can he be anything close to that? That can be get the Mavs over the top, or at least keep them in kind of the vicinity of where they were, which is knocking on the door of an NBA championship. So that's an interesting one. Paul, we got the Stingers report coming up here on the other side of the break, so I'll let you get back to enjoying the action down there. And I know we're going to bring you back on at 11 o'clock, so everybody be sure. Well, don't tune out. Keep listening to us, but then stay tuned on, and then Paul will be back on in about 40 minutes less. And I know we'll dive into 3x3 a little bit more then, and you can tell us all the awesome things that are happening down there at Fan Park.
Looking forward to it, Brian. Thanks so much, guys, and look forward to talking in a little bit.
All right, Paul, we'll catch up with you in a little bit.
Yes.
You are listening
bye-bye.
to the Basketball Show on Sports 1440. We're going to be coming right back with the Stingers report, talking to Coach Jordan Baker and new Stinger Trey McGowan. So joining us, we'll be right back here on Sports 1440. Welcome back to the Basketball Show on Sports 1440. We are coming to you here from the Sports 1440 studios in West Edmonton Mall. My name is Brian Swain. I got Ryan Reed here with me. We're rocking the 90s today. That's how you can always tell who's hosting the show, Ryan. If it's Paul, you're getting the 70s. When I come in and get the 90s, and one day you will control the musical flow of this show, and I cannot wait to see. I'm kind of afraid.
2010s. But
2010s. Okay. Will there be Drake? Will there be Drake content?
Not anymore, maybe. I'm not sure.
Okay. All right. Well, that's fine. That's all that matters to me. Yeah. Well, we've had some great guests already. Want to thank everyone who's joining us so far. Coach Jordan Baker from the Stingers. Trey McGowan's also a new player from the Stingers. Of course, they are playing tomorrow night at the Expo Center, 7 p.m. tip-off if you want to get down there and catch that action. We've had Paul Sir on as well, and he'll be joining us in a little bit later, too. He is down at Ice District where the Hoop City 3x3 is going on all day today and tomorrow. So just so much going on if you love basketball here in the City of Champions. But we are going to talk a little bit about NBA. We touched on at the top of the show. Our poll question today is, what has been the best free agent signing so far? Ryan, you got an update on how that poll is going on Twitter?
Quite a split vote so far. 38.9% of people said Paul George to the Sixers makes sense. Probably stardom-wise, the biggest move of the offseason. Chris Paul had 5.6% of the vote so far. Klay Thompson tied with Paul George at 38.9% when Klay Thompson sat with the Mavericks. And then Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, 16.7% of the vote with the Magic. KCP, fun fact, has the most rings out of anybody in the NBA in the 2020s. Granted, it's 2, but he's a proven champion in the Magic looking to make that next step. You can kind of understand why they're at 16.7%. But again, Brian, just kind of a split vote across the board.
That's a good little bit of trivia. I did not know that. I probably wouldn't have guessed that either. I probably would have said, I mean, you know there's probably going to be somebody who's won 2 rings, but it would have taken me quite a while to rack my brain to figure out who's been on 2 championship winning teams. That is a cool stat. Yeah, he's got 2 rings and Chris Paul is still seeking his first. But I digress.
Probably won't get it with the Spurs right away.
Well, no, he
before he's
won't.
retired.
You know what? We were going to talk about these free agent signings, and I think which one of them we feel is maybe most impactful. But let's just start with that one first. And when we were coming up with what to put on the poll today, I just decided to include that one because I thought that was a really interesting one. Chris Paul is obviously not chasing a ring by going to San Antonio. And I think a lot of this about is just kind of building a culture, which I think is already a very strong culture, and that starts top down with Coach Greg Popovich and what they've had going on there for literally decades now, going back to the David Robinson, Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker years, and now you're seeing it with another very high character player in Wemby coming in and leading the next generation of Spurs basketball. But obviously Chris Paul to come in and provide a little bit of veteran leadership and just another that kind of presence in the locker room I thought was really fascinating. So that might be the most interesting signing to me. Also interesting that a team or an organization that has had so many championships as the Spurs, it's basically in their DNA. I know it's been a minute since they've had any success, but I mean, you know, there was no team better no team more successful in their run from 1999 to 2015. So to bring in a guy like Chris Paul, who's been really chasing a ring his whole career, and he has never been able to break through to provide veteran leadership, I thought was an interesting move. But that's going to be fun to watch, and I think the Spurs are a team on the rise. But that said, let's look at what we think might be the biggest impact free agent signing, and I'll give it to you, Ryan. Who is your pick?
It's going to be Paul George to the Sixers. Just having that duo with Tyrese and Joel last year, sometimes they were both lacking. Tyrese had an incredible playoffs, but having that extra level, Paul George is known for not really being bad at anything. He's kind of can do everything. He can slash. He's a 6'9" wing defender, can guard 1 through 4, sometimes 5s, especially nowadays in the small ball NBA. An elite shooter, can create his own shot on that step back. Is he a little past his prime? Perhaps. I remember his MVP years with OKC or his years challenging LeBron with the Pacers, him and Roy Hibbert running things. He's past his prime, sure, but with the Sixers, he can kind of lean into that third option role, second option if they need it. And when Embiid gets injured, inevitably, he'll be the first or second option for that too. A sleeper pick for impact could be Chris Paul, just for like that Wembanyama connection. Wembanyama in his rookie year had 21, 11, 4, and 3. For statistics for you there. Chris Paul could honestly enhance it to Wembanyama, could maybe be a 25, 12, 4, and 4 guy.
I don't think it's crazy to say that he could be up to 30 points per game. If
really?
Not maybe this year, maybe right away. I mean, if you go, and I don't know exactly.
9-point upgrade.
Well, I don't know exactly what his numbers were the last month of the season, but he really started to crank it up there. And I know you get on that, but I'm going to say he was averaging a lot more than 21 points per game over the last month of the season. I think the sky is the limit for that kid. And now if you have somebody like Chris Paul who is just going to be able to feed him.
I have the numbers for you there. In April, he played 5 games and he averaged 25, 13, and 7.
Okay.
And then in March, he averaged 23 at 12 and 5. So
Okay,
definitely
so-
better than his 21 point per game mark, as you mentioned.
Yeah, so we'll say around 24, 25 for the last month
And then
or so. of
13
the
and
season.
7's nuts.
Yeah. So, and I mean, just getting him with someone like Chris Paul is just going to be able to feed him is, I think, I would have said that I think even before they got Chris Paul that this guy has potential to score 30 points per game. If not this season, then maybe next season.
He also had 28 blocks in 5 games in April.
Yeah, I
That's
mean, he was
ridiculous
just
if you think
he was
about
just
it.
unbelievable. I mean, this guy, that team is good. It is absolutely crazy to think about all these other great teams in the West. Like we're talking about your Sacramento Kings.
The Sacramento Kings.
Yeah, and I just the West. I don't even know, man. What can you do? Like if you're any of these teams, what can you do? Because it is so stacked. Memphis should be on the rise again next year after kind of a down year if Ja Morant gets all his stuff together. But
The Lakers and Warriors are always there somehow.
yeah. Is there a bad team? Houston has really even improved quite a bit significantly too. I can't even think if there's like really a weak team in the West right now. I'm sure
Well, the
there's probably-
Blazers are terrible.
The Blazers are terrible. There you go. Yes, somebody has to bring up the rear, and it's probably gonna
Jazz
be
might
them.
trade Laurie too, then they'd be bumps too.
Yeah, but we're getting a little bit off track though. But I thought you raised some interesting points there about Paul George. He could be the difference maker, and I was going to say that as good as Paul George is, this team their championship hopes live or die with the health of Joel Embiid, right? I mean, without Joel Embiid, you saw what they were this year. They got eliminated in the first round, he played in that series, but obviously
Even with Joel Embiid, they've never made the conference finals.
Yeah, well, fair enough. What I'll go back to that
Albeit
in a
because of the
second, but-
Kawhi shot there, but
Yes.
if he didn't hit that, who knows?
They could have won a championship that year, but I think you made a good point though, and I want to make sure I highlight this is saying with Paul George now, if Joel Embiid, or as you say,
It's
inevitably
inevitably.
he does get hurt, they do have a guy who can fill it up for 25, 30 night in, night out. And like you saw what happened when they were without Embiid this year. This was a team that was like hovering around first, well, not first, but behind Boston, but second place in the Eastern Conference for the first part of the season. Joel Embiid got hurt. They dropped all the way to where they were like around the 7th, 8th, 9th seed. And then as soon as Joel Embiid got back, they managed to rally, push themselves back up the standings again, and gave the New York Knicks a very good run in the first round of the playoffs. So if even let's say Joel Embiid misses 30 games again next year, 20 games even, if they have a player now like Paul George who can maybe even give them, let's say in that stretch of 20 games, they now go 11-9 or 12-8 instead of like 5-15. Now when they get to the playoffs, now they're not coming in with that like 6th seed. They're maybe coming in as a 3 or a 4, and that puts them in much better position to not only win the first round, but to not have to go the distance and play so much, potentially go through the play-in, potentially go through 7-game series. So I think just overall, when you look at it holistically like that, it can make a big impact.
And also, you're not relying on Kelly Oubre to shoot like 15 shots a game. Like it's Tyrese Maxey.
Well, that's not good for anybody.
Shoots like 25, and he's honestly a very good player, but he can't be the only guy creating. And Kelly Oubre, again, a very good player. He re-signed with the Sixers this offseason, but he's not a 15 shots a game guy. And now Paul George is taking those shots from him, and even Tyrese now can kind of rely on Paul George, and they create off each other versus Tyrese walking down, hitting a step back 3. And granted, he hit a lot of them, but you can't rely on that's not sustainable, especially in the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly right. So we touched on Paul George. We touched on Chris Paul. I asked Paul when we had him on the opening segment there his thoughts about Klay Thompson, and then I kind of gave my thoughts about that too. But what do you think, Ryan, about the Klay Thompson going to the Mavs?
The Mavs just need people who hit shots. Seeing them in the playoffs, and especially in the finals especially, they could not hit threes. It was Luka and Kyrie. They'd create. They'd either take a tough shot and miss it or make it, or they'd kick it for a 3. And guys like PJ Washington, Derek Jones Jr., who's gone now. Derek Jones Jr. signed with the Clippers, I believe. But they needed guys that hit shots. Klay Thompson, although he had a rough play-in game against the Kings. I think he was 0 for 10 from the field, which is crazy. But he hits shots when it matters. He's been a proven playoff performer, and teams like the Mavericks that have those younger guys like PJ Washington, like Derek Jones, as I mentioned, and Derek Lively, Gafford, guys like that, they need people who hit shots. So even if Klay Thompson doesn't live up to the money he's being paid, and it's not a crazy amount of money, but $50 million for anybody is pretty crazy. as long as he has a couple moments where he's hitting shots that he's supposed to, maybe he has an incredible game 3 or 4 in a playoff series, that is what you kind of want from him. With signings like that at the middle-level exception, you're looking for guys that are going to have 1 or 2 great playoff games that save you when your star players are not playing well. And Klay Thompson's done that in the past with Steph and KD when they had their moments, or even before that when it was just Steph and Draymond, where they could rely on Klay for 1 or 2 good games in the playoffs and help them get over that hump when the star players are down. Because this last season, when Kyrie and Doncic didn't have good games, they'd lose by 20 or 30 points.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And I just wonder what Klay has left. I mean, I think it is fair to say that we did see a drop-off in his game this year. And I know he wasn't very happy about him being moved to the bench, but I think if you just look at his level of play, that's was probably the wise move for Golden State. So we'll see what he has left. Klay is going to be a fascinating one to watch, and the Mavericks are going to be a fascinating team to watch too. Ryan, do we want to? I know we're getting up against our time in this segment, and you're listening to the basketball show here on Sports 1440. Do we want to even? Do we dare even go into LeBron territory right now, or do we save that for later, or do we just say maybe we'll save this for another week or another month?
It's kind of funny. Just a quick point on the LeBron thing is that he's saying he was willing to sacrifice a pay cut just to let some of those guys in, but they didn't even want to come to LA. Like Jonas Valanciunas, Demar apparently now doesn't want to go to LA. So it's an all-world media play to say he'd take a pay cut than to sign a max 3 days later. So good for LeBron. He got his money, but he says he's going to take a pay cut, just doesn't take one. Yeah,
I think Russell Westbrook was somebody who was being discussed too, was he not? I think about going to the Lakers.
And he's not going to the Lakers.
Yeah, he's not going to the Lakers.
I wonder how that went last time.
Yeah, exactly. So you know what? We'll maybe touch on that one later.
He was a big scapegoat for them.
Yes, but if you are LeBron and a Lakers fan, and especially a Bronny fan, Bronny will be making his debut in Summer League this afternoon, taking on Ryan's Sacramento Kings at I think it's at 2:30 on one of the TSN feeds. So you can check that out. But we are going to go to a break right now. And a reminder here, just again, hit us up with your answers to our poll question on Twitter, and you can always text us. We've been asking today who you think should be the starting 5 for Canada's Olympic basketball team. Either get us at Twitter at @basketball_show or send us your starting 5 to the text line 1-833-401-1440. Again, 1-833-401-1440. Let us know what you think. If you got any other questions you want to fire our way, please send them onto the text line. We will be taking a break now. When we come back, we will be rejoined by Paul Sir live on location down at Hoop City 3x3 in Ice District. Come on back. Welcome back to the basketball show on Sports 1440. My name is Brian Swain, sitting in for Paul Sir today. Got Ryan Reed with me here, and I'm really excited to be joined now by our guest, Alex Adams. Alex writes for Raptors Republic and is also the host of the Behind the Play podcast. Alex has been doing an amazing job covering the Canadian men's basketball team training camp that was going on in Toronto over the last week and a half or so. Alex, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Really looking forward to chatting with you. Great work you've been doing covering this training camp that really has had the eyes of the nation on it, and there's been no shortage of drama from the Andrew Wiggins departure, and then of course Zach Edey didn't make it. But at the same time, I mean, there's so much to get excited about. You wrote about the chemistry that you really the sense of chemistry you got from watching this team there at the camp. Maybe just before we kind of dive into it, Alex, I'll just get your overall 500-foot perspective of what you thought the camp did.
I think I wrote about the chemistry, and it's funny. I covered this team last year as well in Jakarta and that training camp, and you see Shea and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. For people that don't know, they're cousins, and they're just inseparable, just with each other all the time, laughing, joking. Then at another side of the court, you see Kelly Olynyk, Dwight Powell, and they've been kind of the old heads of this program. They're hanging out, they're chilling. You see Jamal Murray with his dad all the time, kind of walking alongside each other, right? So you can kind of tell that they're a pretty cohesive unit, and that they've been through, I guess, the wars of last year together for a lot of them. And, it's a pretty lively, fun camp, a lot of smiles. Obviously, I don't see all of their practices as well, but it seems like, the good vibes from last year where they won a bronze medal and beat a lot of really good teams on that way, including Dylan Brooks putting up 39 points against the USA, and then Shea breaking Mikal Bridges' ankles in that game as well. It's a really fun team, a lot of talent, and it's going to be a really fun Olympic Games for Canada basketball.
Is there anyone, and of course we don't know what the final roster is going to be like just yet. I believe they're still at 16 players right now?
Yeah.
So we got to get down to 12 players. But who might be, you mentioned guys like Shea, Jamal, Kelly Olynyk. These are either, these are guys that are superstars in the NBA or stalwarts of the national team program, guys that people know really well. Is there a player or two that you think could be a surprising impact player for this team?
I think Andrew Nembhard is a pretty exciting add to this team. People watch the playoffs. He shined in the Eastern Conference Finals when Tyrese Halliburton got injured for the Indiana Pacers. I think him off the bench will just provide a lot of energy. He's a good passer, really good shooter as well, and just a fun player that kind of adds a little bit of something Canada basketball really hasn't had. And if he's your backup point guard, you're in a pretty good place. And then obviously the guys from last year that did really well. And I looked to Dylan Brooks, right? He, as I said, he put 39 points on, Anthony Edwards and Team USA. And I think he'll still have a pretty big impact on the defensive end. And if he can shoot anywhere like he did last summer and make like 45% of his threes, I think that'll be, a really great add for this team, or just someone that will provide a lot. Obviously, Shea and Jamal Murray speak for themselves, but those are two players that I think will really shine at the Olympics.
One of my observations from last summer, I remember talking with a couple of friends about this at the time, was it seemed like obviously basketball is basketball, but there are significant differences in the FIBA game. And I think Dylan Brooks is one where it's very well suited to him. Are there other players on this team that you might think that might really be able to, especially because there are some guys on this team that we really haven't seen a lot of yet playing in FIBA, but we're very familiar from what they've been doing in the NBA. Who do you think might be a quote-unquote FIBA player from this group?
I think, outside of the guys that played last year, I think Trey Lyles brings a lot as well. He can shoot the three ball. He's pretty big. He's pretty physical. He likes to get rebounds, right? And in the FIBA game, those bigs that can shoot and spread the court, because the three-point line is a bit shorter than the NBA, adds that value as well. So I think that's a player that I think, many Canadian fans might not really know him. He plays for the Sacramento Kings, had been coached by Jordy Fernandez for a long time when Jordy was the assistant coach in Sacramento. I think he's one player that's kind of under the radar. I think Lou Dort, when you talk about FIBA game, it's pretty physical, and Lou Dort's, just a stalwart on the defensive end, so physical. Just seeing him at practice, he's just a bulldog, huge guy, super strong. And you saw him in the NBA Finals just lock down Luka. Even though they lost in OKC, he was really good on Luka, and Luka had his worst series in the playoffs against OKC. So I think those two players are players that I think will translate really well to the FIBA game, just with the physicality and on the defensive end, and also the ability to score a little bit and shoot.
One thing I would like to ask you about, and we're talking with Alex Adams of Raptors Republic. You can give him a follow on Twitter at AlexAdamsBTP. Again, that's at AlexAdamsBTP. Alex, what did you kind of make of the whole thing, the drama with Andrew Wiggins? We heard, the Canadian national team said one thing, Golden State kind of said another. Were you able to get a sense of what really went down there?
Yeah, I think just being around camp and what I heard, I think for the most part that was Golden State's decision. In the NBA, you're not necessarily allowed to hold out players to play for their national team unless there's an injury. And Andrew Wiggins had an injury throughout the season, although he finished the season as well. And I think Steve Kerr and Golden State kind of held him out. I think the fact that he was part of trade negotiations and trade discussions for a Zach LaVine, a Paul George, I think that probably didn't help. So I think for Golden State, they see him as a trade asset. If he goes to the Olympics or plays in a pre-tournament game and gets injured, then they lose that trade value. And I will say, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but Steve Kerr is the head coach of Team USA. and Canada's better with Andrew Wiggins, and obviously not as good without him. And that's probably USA's main rival in Canada and amongst a couple other teams. And if Andrew Wiggins doesn't show up, that maybe helps Team USA's chances of winning the gold medal. So I think it was a confluence of different things that came to be, but I think it sounds like for the most part that was Golden State's decision rather than Andrew Wiggins' decision.
Well, yeah, and we did talk a little bit about this on the show here last week. And I brought up the comparison to hockey, and for people who don't know, they can you yourself actually cover the Ottawa Senators for the Hockey News, so you're obviously very well versed in immersed in the hockey world as well. But can you imagine a team doing this in an NHL team, holding a player out because they might want to trade him? And like, for example, I think the last couple times the Olympics were on during the NHL season, like let's say 2006, 2010, 2014, the Olympic break was like in February. The trade deadline would be in March. So if somebody was looking to move somebody at the trade deadline, they could, in the NHL, they could just easily, under the same auspices here, hold out a player. And I just can never see that flying in the world of hockey. Am I off base with that?
I think, there's probably a reason why the NHL hasn't gone to the Olympics for a couple, cycles in a row, because I think the owners don't want their players, as you said, to get injured. Here in Ottawa, people might not remember, it was when I was a kid, maybe you were as well, but Dominic Hasek tore his, I think, adductor at Torino, and the Sens were like the best team in the league, and then they didn't win the cup that year, and his injury was a part of it. I think John Tavares got injured for the Islanders, I think in 2014. So I think teams, as much as they can, try not to, but at the same time, I do think it's a bit different in terms of, I think, how and what playing for your country at the Olympics means to a lot of the NBA players, especially the North American players. Compared to the NHL, where, Sidney Crosby, obviously being in Edmonton, how much Connor McDavid wants to play at the Olympics. I think it's a bit different for some of these guys. But at the same time, I do think there is definitely a pride. And, you see Shea, you see Jamal, Dylan Brooks, RJ Barrett. So there is that element too. But I do think it's a bit different in the NBA because guys don't look to the Olympics the same way as maybe NHLers do. Right.
And I think, you're probably right, and it's just part of the culture around the sport. And I think we could even see it now looking at with both Copa and Euro going on right now, how much it means to those players to be part of their national sides. And it might just be, it's just different from one sport to the next. But I know for us who here in Canada who've been waiting so long to see finally that ultimate Canadian basketball dream team that we've known for so long we could put together, and it's going to be pretty close, but it's not quite what it could be without Wiggins.
Yeah, I think, I don't want to push back too much because Andrew Wiggins is a really good player, but I mean, this team is a heck of a team, and I know reporters in Spain and Latvia from, my travels covering this team last year, and like they look at Canada and they're like, oh my God, like that is the dream team. You look at Dylan Brooks, Jamal Murray, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. Like Canada, we don't have Andrew Wiggins, but we do have our own monsters of sorts. The USA has their dream team. We have our dream team. So I think Wiggins is definitely a miss. At the same time, you look at Canada basketball and you're like, oh my God, like look at this team. It's essentially going to be all NBA players on a roster, and they've essentially cut some NBA players and Corey Joseph and O'Shea Brissett. So, Canada basketball and this summer, the men's team is in such a good position. And I think, they've said it. I think gold is what they're aiming at. They might not get it. I'm not saying gold, not bringing back a gold medal is a disappointment, but I think that is the goal, and it should be the goal for this team. And that's really, really exciting to finally be able to say that and see it on display in a month in Paris.
Absolutely, and I do want to, before I let you go, I want to touch on the Raptors with you real quick. But one last question on Team Canada. We've been asking our listeners here today is to send us in who they think their starting five should be for the Canadian men's Olympic team. I know I kind of put you on the spot here, but I'll ask you. No. I think obviously the backcourt is set, but who do you like in the front court?
Yeah, I think without Wiggins, it makes it a bit easier. I'm going to go with, obviously, Shea, Jamal in the backcourt. I think I will go with RJ Barrett, Dylan Brooks, and then I'll have Dwight Powell at the 5. And then off the bench, when you think about it, you have Andrew Nembhard, Kelly Olynyk, Lou Dort, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Trey Lyles. Like, you just have a five-some of NBA players too. So that's a pretty darn good lineup. But I think RJ Barrett, Dylan Brooks just bring some size, some offense as well. And Dwight Powell's a good defender as well at the 5 position, even if he's undersized. And obviously, I think that lineup, that starting 5, will score a lot of points and defend well enough to, maybe blow out some teams.
It's a very formidable lineup for sure, and looking forward to getting a chance to see it. And yeah, as I mentioned, we'll just jump here quickly to the Raptors. Alex, maybe I'll get your thoughts on not much really has happened in free agency with respect to them yet, but we'll start with your thoughts on what they got from the draft.
Yeah, I think Jacoby Walters, a good kind of player, very toolsy, very long. He's very Raptors-y with a lot of potential, but maybe hasn't kind of hit the heights he hoped to, at Baylor. But I think it's a good prospect. I think just for Toronto, they just need to bring in more talent, right? After years of, kind of going all in to win championships and then making the Jakob Poeltl trade. They've lost a lot of talent out the door and losing guys like obviously Siakam and OG. So I think Walter brings a bit. Their second round picks look pretty good too, but they're second round picks, so it's there's so much that you can expect from a second round pick. But I think they did pretty well at the draft. Walter was on some mock boards were in that like 10 to 12 range, so I think they kind of got their guy higher than they expected. And I know he said that he didn't even talk to the Raptors because the Raptors didn't expect him to drop to them. So I think it was a good pick overall.
For sure. And last one, the Raptors picked up they exercised the contract on Bruce Brown. What do you think the future holds for him? I mean, I think it's probably fait accompli now. He's probably going to get traded, right? It's just a matter of when and where.
Yeah, I still, talking to some of my fellow media members, I don't really get why the Raptors picked him up, just because I don't know what they're getting more than maybe, a second round pick or a salary filler. I think I don't know what they'll get, but he is a contract, and in the NBA, an expiring $20-some million contract can have a lot of value, kind of like a la Goran Dragic back in the day, although Bruce Brown actually plays for the Raptors in some games. So I think eventually he'll be traded, whether it's later this summer or in, maybe at the trade deadline, because he's good if he's on a good team, and the Raptors aren't the greatest team, so his value isn't as high for, a young team that's trying to kind of mold into a plucky team. But if you trade him back to Denver or the Lakers or whoever, he'd have a lot of value, and you could see that in 2023 when he won a NBA championship with the Denver Nuggets.
Absolutely. Alex, really, it's been great to chat with you, and appreciate you coming on and joining us last minute here today and get your insight. I know our listeners have enjoyed probably hearing from you too. So thanks very much. Hope we can have you on the show again in the future. Awesome. Thanks so much. And yeah, have me on when Canada's, in the gold medal game against the USA, and maybe we can chat then. But thanks so much for having me on. I like that prediction. All right. Alex Adams, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you. So we got Alex's take on who the starting 5 should be. And again, we've been asking you today to either text us or tweet us your starting 5. Again, you can get us on Twitter at @basketball_show, or hit us up on the studio text line 1-833-401-1440. Let you know who you think should be the starting 5 for Canada. Ryan and I are going to be talking about our starting 5s when we come back to wrap up the show. You're listening to the Basketball Show on Sports 1440. Welcome back to the Basketball Show on Sports 1440. We're coming to you live here from the studios west of the mall. My name is Brian Swain. Got Ryan Reed here with me this morning, and Paul Sir, of course, is downtown in Ice District at Fan Park, keeping everything going, rolling along with the Hoop City 3x3. And that was a heck of a musical choice there, Ryan. That was... For those of you who are regular listeners, you can probably tell from one week to the next who's calling the shots here musically. Ryan got to pick the last song of the day, and he delivered a knockout blow with that one there, and one that completely stumped me. So well done, well played.
Yeah, this little shout out to Shrek. Grew up watching Shrek. That song's in Shrek, and There's a lot of, like, including Smash Mouth, as you mentioned earlier. But yeah, I got to play a Shrek song.
That was my guess when you said it was going to be from Shrek. I thought for sure we were getting some Smash Mouth of some sort. But no, that's very well played. So we're heading into our last segment here. This is the home stretch of the show. I want to thank all our guests we've had on here today. And so much going on in the world of basketball, so much to talk about. We've been asking you to either let us know on Twitter or let us know at the text line. And it's not too late. You can still get your words in there if you want. Text line 1-833-401-1440 or Twitter at basketball_show. We've been asking, who do you think your starting five should be for the Canadian men's Olympic basketball team? Alex Adams gave us his pick last segment. He's going with Dwight Powell, RJ Barrett, Dylan Brooks in the front court, and the backcourt, which I think everyone will universally agree on because it's probably the best backcourt in the world, of Jamal Murray and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Curry and Anthony Edwards is pretty close, no?
Who?
Curry and Anthony Edwards?
Yeah. I see this now. This is a good conversation. Now we do we want to table? We'll table this one and maybe get to it if we have time. But
Curry, Anthony Edwards, and Shai are all the superstars, and Jamal's not a superstar. No? I think Shai's better than Curry right now, but I think Anthony Edwards is way better than Jamal Murray.
Yeah, okay, let's flip it around then. I'll say, but I will also say that Shai, I guess if you flip
the gap
it around
isn't even close between Jamal and Anthony Edwards.
I think let's put it this way: if you ranked the top four players from that, or if you ranked the players in that group of four, the second and third best players are on Team USA, and the first and fourth are on.
I think the gaps have to be important there. Like, it's a huge. The tier 1 is Curry, Shai, and then I think tier 2 is just below them, Anthony Edwards, and then it's like tier 4 or 5 is Jamal Murray.
You know what, too, is that they're both, well, especially, I mean, Curry may be the greatest clutch player of all time, certainly of this era, and then Shai and Jamal have already hit many, many, many cold-blooded shots. So, I mean, take your pick. You make a good point. I'm going to go biased. I'm just going to say that Shai and Jamal are the best backcourt in the world, but you have a very good point there. But let's get back to the nature at hand here. Let's chat about it. We've been hyping it all show, Ryan. So drop it on us. Who are your starting five for the Canadian men's basketball team? I'll
start on Twitter. Mr. BR replied, a loyal listener to our show and constantly interacting with our content.
Awesome.
He, of course, agreed. Shai and Jamal in the backcourt. Pretty obvious decision there. Jamal, actually an excellent two-guard pick, in my opinion. Can play that off-ball position. Has with Jokic in the high post all for the last couple of years. Can run around, run off screens, and able to shoot very well. He has Dylan Brooks and Kelly Olynyk in the front court as the 3-4, and then Kem Birch at the 5.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
So he deviated a little bit from Alex, so that's a new take. So run up, I guess. So he's got Kem Birch at the 5, and
Kelly Olynyk
Dylan
at the
Brooks
4.
and Kelly Olynyk going 3-4. That's interesting. I'm not even sure. I mean, they've still got 4 cuts to make. There's 16 players still left in camp right now, and can we even say for sure that Kem Birch is going to make the final roster?
I don't know. I mean, he's a good player, but
he is. I mean, but that's the nice thing about this team now, right?
We're lacking a lot of 5, so you could argue maybe we take an extra 5 just in case someone explodes during it. Yeah, maybe just ride that center out. But anyways, my 5 will be Shai and Jamal, obviously in that backcourt, and then I have RJ Barrett, just kind of that elite who can guard the 1 through 4 at the 3. And then I have Dylan Brooks at the 4. So maybe, I guess you can rotate RJ to the 4 or Dylan to the 4. Both of them maybe on the smaller side for the position, but both can guard and have that so-called dog, as they call it, in them, able to compete and guard just with the best of them. At the 5, I'm going to go a little off the wall here. Trey Lyles at the 5. I've had the pleasure of watching him for a couple of years now in Sacramento, and his elite ability just to guard bigger guys very well. He's a huge wingspan. That's another thing I don't like it when people talk about basketball defensively. It's not your height, it's your wingspan. Because you don't guard with your head, you guard with your arms. So if you're 6'5" and you have a 6'10", 6'11" wingspan, in my head you're 6'10", 6'11", right? You're not guarding with your up, down, you're guarding with your left, right. So Trey Lyles, huge wingspan, has an elite shot, especially that corner 3. He's able to spread the floor very well. And as Alex touched on the last segment, in FIBA basketball, having a 5 that can stretch the floor and shoot like Trey Lyles can is going to take a lot of people in FIBA by surprise, and Alex said to look out for that.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting pick, and I don't necessarily. I mean, you make a very valid argument there. Trey Lyles at the 5 in the NBA might be a bit of a stretch. I don't think it's so much of a stretch here, especially in FIBA. And before we get into that, I'll give you my picks here, and then we can break it down a little bit more. I am going to go a bit off the board as well. I'm going to agree with you on, of course, we'll agree on the backcourt. I'm also going to go with Dylan Brooks and RJ Barrett at the 3-4. At the 5, and this kind of goes along with the spirit of what you're saying with having a player that can step outside and hit the shots and stretch the floor a bit, I'm going to go with Kelly Olynyk. He has played the 5 a bit in the NBA in some of his various stops. I think even some sets he was used in that scenario with the Raptors after he got traded to them this year. So I might go Kelly Olynyk. I like what he brings to the floor. He's versatile defensively. He's a good passer. He can contribute on the boards off the glass as well. So I like the well-rounded skill set he brings into that. I'm even going to put an asterisk onto this too, because I think depending, and I'm going to ask you this, Ryan, depending on his opponent, on Canada's opponent, would you potentially start Lou Dort? Because this is a guy, let's say you're playing Luka. Let's say you're playing, I don't know who else, Ant-Man, right? Is Lou Dort your designated stopper?
I don't think, like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you have RJ Barrett and Dylan Brooks. I think you can afford to have Lou Dort come off the bench and even just give those defenders a break. I don't think Lou should be starting. He's definitely the next option, in my opinion. He'd be the sixth man in that option to come off the bench. But I don't think he is starting. And can I just jump back quick to the Trey Lyles versus Kelly Olynyk debate that we're having now?
Yes.
Kelly Olynyk has a 6'8" wingspan, which is a much shorter than he is. I actually have a larger wingspan than Kelly Olynyk. And again, I pay attention to wingspan. Kelly Olynyk can shoot very well, but defensively, Trey Lyles, I think, laps him. Trey Lyles in the draft combine measured 6'10" in shoes, 235 pounds, and a 7'3.5" wingspan. So Trey Lyles has the body of they say standard, he should be the same wingspan as your height. He's 7'3.5" if you just buy his wings, like wingspan, right? I think Trey Lyles is a stronger perimeter defender, has proven to be a talent at the rim as well, is younger than Kelly Olynyk, and as of late, has been able to compete. Kelly Olynyk's still a better shooter, but has been able to compete with him from 3-point range. And Trey Lyles has a pretty refined post game as well now. So that's kind of my rebuttal for the Kelly Olynyk thing.
No, it's very good. I did not know the difference in wingspan, and you do make a good point about the wingspan. I didn't know it was that significant between Kelly Olynyk and Trey Lyles, because I honestly thought that when Kelly Olynyk has been used at the 5 in the NBA, I thought he's been able to hold his own. You do make a good point there about, I think Trey's post game has been developed, and I think the Team Canada could probably use an inside scoring presence. I don't know. That's something that's probably going to be, if this team has a weakness, that's it, right? It's going to be at that 5 spot. So, maybe...
So why not just embrace it, I'd say. If you have a weakness at the 5 spot, play a guy who's a 4 typically and has a 7'2.5" wingspan. Don't try to play into we're just going to play a weak 5. Just don't play a 5 at the 5.
No, that's exactly right. And that might be the ticket is to kind of take a more radical approach, and maybe that is, and that could potentially create, especially looking at some of these other rosters, it could create some matchup nightmares for other teams.
Totally. Maybe not against the United States of America, but against teams like even Greece, honestly. I don't know how we're going to guard Giannis, because I don't know if you've been paying, I think earlier this morning, Slovenia got killed by Greece in the qualifiers, and now Greece has a pretty good chance to qualify for the first time for basketball in a good long while. Actually, maybe ever. I don't know about that. I'll have to fact check it, but Giannis is going to be a nightmare in the Olympics. I don't know who we put on him, because if we put RJ, Lou, or Dylan, Giannis is 6'11" with a 7'4" wingspan, and Lou Dort and those guys are 6'5", 6'6".
Do you even concern yourself with Giannis that much, or do you just let him get his and then worry about the other 11 players on the team who you're probably overall vastly superior to?
The thing with Giannis is you can just pretend he doesn't exist, but he's all 50. If he has 50, that's not going to be good. We don't have a big that can really guard him. I think Trey Lyles might honestly be the best option, which is not good. Trey Lyles is a good defender, but he's not guarding Giannis.
No, that is probably going to be, and I think it's interesting here in our discussions. We pretty much all agreeing on, for the most part, on the backcourt, and we've got Dylan Brooks and RJ at the 3 and 4. But it's that number 5 that is going to be the big question mark with this team. And you just heard between yourself, myself, and Alex have picked 3 different players to play that spot.
And on Twitter, another fifth guy.
Yeah, and there's another one. So that will be. But you know what? That's one of the many intriguing things to watch about that team. Ryan, sorry, did you have another thought on that?
Well, it's just that anticipation is exciting, right? Like a year ago, or maybe 4 years ago, last Olympics, we were excited for the Olympics, but we knew that the players that should have played weren't going to play. So the fact that we're even talking about it now is pretty cool. Just to kind of have that expectation that we can compete with a lot of these guys, and even against the States, we should be able to have a chance to be in the late stage of games. And having those best-on-best competitions, as we even saw in hockey, we will see this year, next year, it's some of the most exciting times for a sport when you're seeing teams compete for the country that they care so much about. I remember in an interview a couple years ago, Giannis said that he values winning an Olympic gold for Greece the same as an NBA championship. And someone saying with the stature of Giannis, saying that is just so big for that sport, the international community. So getting to see a lot of these countries just go head-to-head, best on best, and seeing players play with each other don't normally play. Like even the States, having LeBron, Curry, KD, Anthony Davis, guys that have been around forever, and like for me at least, I grew up watching them and seeing them all play together again is going to be so exciting. Just it's going to be. I'm very excited for it.
This really is the greatest international basketball tournament ever because we've never had this much talent in so many different countries as we have before, but they've never had an opportunity to all play together like this at the same time too, because the pandemic Olympics kind of threw that out the window last time, and so this, I think this is going to be the greatest basketball tournament of all time, and hopefully
continue to build on it moving forward with even more international exposure.
Exactly. I mean, think in the Olympics. I mean, just 4 years, but even 8 years from now, what it's going to be like as just the game grows more globally and more of these nations are able to field even more competitive teams. It's the future is just going to get brighter and better. So lots to look forward to as far as that goes. Maybe before we get out of here, hit us, Ryan, with one final poll update.
Yeah, so it's still that kind of that even split. Klay Thompson is more of a lead now. He has 36.4% of the vote. Again, for those who are just joining us, it's the best free agent addition of the NBA offseason, and we gave 4 options: Paul George, Chris Paul, Klay Thompson, and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Klay Thompson finished up first place with 36.4% of the vote. Paul George second, 31.8%. KCP 18.2% of the vote, and Chris Paul in fourth, 13.6%. Actually, Chris Paul and KCP were the biggest movers from the first update we had percentage-wise. Paul George and Klay stayed about the same, about a third of the vote each. But Chris Paul and KCP caught up, and just they shared about a third of the vote through the whole thing. So for 2 players that are one past their prime and second, KCP's a role player, it's kind of cool to see that.
There you go, and I'm sure next week you'll be hoping that we can ask a similar question.
About Demar.
This time we'll be including Demar Derozan.
He's a little update for those if we're not on Twitter. Those not on Twitter, he's in Sacramento right now.
Demar watches on.
He's in Sacramento right now, and they're talking to the reps. And you'd say I don't want to say it's a good sign, but I'll allude to it. And it's only weird if it doesn't work, Brian. Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Yeah, okay. No, we'll stay tuned into Demar Watch. Will continue throughout this week, and we will certainly hit you up with all the latest updates when we are back joining you again at this time next weekend. But thank you for everybody for tuning in today. Before we get out of here, just want to remind everyone about all the great basketball that is going on in our city this weekend. Of course, there is Hoop City 3x3 going on all day today and tomorrow. Get yourself down to the Fan Park in Ice District. You can catch both the the World Tour and the Women's Series. Olympic teams are literally going to be competing there, so lots of great stuff and lots of grassroots events as well. And of course, the Eminence Stingers, 7 o'clock tip-off tomorrow night at the Expo Center. They're hosting Brampton, looking to continue their tremendous season so far. They're 10-4, looking to move to 11-4 with a victory tomorrow night. Ryan, thank you for joining us here or being in us today. We've had lots of fun stuff to talk about.
And hopefully, as we mentioned just a couple seconds ago, hopefully we'll have more stuff to talk about next week as it pertains to the capital city of California's basketball team.
There you go. All right. Well, again, thank you for everybody for joining us. You've been listening to the Basketball Show on Sports 1440, and we'll catch you next week.